Good day everyone, my name is John Meglin and today we're going to be taking a look at Cloud Assessment and the Microsoft Assessment Planning Tool. So let's get into this and start taking a look at the Microsoft Assessment Planning Tool and how to get it, install it, set it up and run a scan and start using it to look at our migration to Azure. So we're going to go ahead and just Google and find the Microsoft Assessment Planning Toolkit. It is a free download. Again, you want to check, some of the details and the system requirements. Again, it's not much for this product. It's a pretty light product. It doesn't use any agents or anything. It is a very harmless product that does a great job of just giving you some information about your current on-premise network. And you can see it runs on Windows 10, many different operating systems. In this case, we're just going to go ahead and download it, excuse me, and run that on a server that's in our environment that we've been working on. Again, this hybrid cloud journey project, our fictional FCM company. So go ahead and download that, and then we'll start the wizard to run and set it up. Again, you're going to be taking the defaults on this. And as you can see, it's a very easy installation, nothing tricky here. So once we have it installed, we're going to go ahead and run the tool. And as you're going to see on the screen when it comes up, the product can be used for many different things. In our case, we're going to use it, in the cloud piece, but we do need to give it. It's got a light database it uses, and give that database a name. And once we're there, again, we're going to be working out of the Cloud tab. And you can see there's some collect inventory, performance data. Then we can get to where we need to be and get our documentation for the assessment. So we're going to go ahead and do those steps. First, we're going to start by setting up an inventory collection. Yes, there's a couple different ways you can do this depending on what you have going on in your environment. In our case, we have all Windows servers, so we're just going to pick Windows. And we're going to use Active Directory. Again, there's different ways, a couple different options here you can choose, that meets your needs. We're going to supply some credentials so it can actually scan the machines and inventory it. Again, you can create an account just for this, or what we're doing here is using the built-in administrator account for this lab. There's some different options here that I'll just bounce through and show you. I typically like to limit it. If not, if you've got more stuff out there, like we have a lot in our lab, it'll go and find just a ton of stuff. So I'm going to narrow it down, to just that domain that we're working with, in our environment. And just so you see, there's some other options. And like I said, I don't want to find them all. So I'm just going to pick our domain. And we need an account here. The first one was for Active Directory. This is a WMI account that we're going to need. Again, a lot of folks like to create separate credentials for that. In this example, we're just going to go ahead and use some credentials that we already have. Sorry about that. Got that password wrong. Definitely need to put in the correct username and password you want to use. And I'm going to change this to our administrator account like I referenced. And we just need to save that. And we're going to go ahead and hit finish. and we'll have our inventory that's being gathered. You can hit the details and just kind of see what's going on. Depending on the size of your environment, inventory could take a little while, but it doesn't usually take that long. Our next step is to collect the performance data. And you can see we've got the inventory data and the hardware configuration good to go. Like I said, our second step is to go ahead and collect that performance data. We're going to give it a range that we want to collect the data within. Default minimum is 30 minutes. In your environment, you want to pick, a time period that the systems are in use, and that way you get a good baseline for what's going on in your environment. In this lab, we won't have a lot of data that's too exciting because these servers are non-production. But just to keep the screen up here so you can see some of your options, we can do Windows, Linux machines, things like that. So you just want to make your time frame and make sure it works for you. We're going to choose computers from a list of ones that we want to actually go ahead and collect that performance data for. So if you want to do this in groups, things like that, you can definitely do that. You can see I've got quite a few machines that we're using for this lab related to this project that we have out here, but I'm going to go ahead and limit that to the ones that we've been using specifically. And I'm going to go ahead and do this assessment as if thinking further down the line, maybe I want to move all my servers to the cloud. And you can see the diagram of our servers. There's our domain controllers, things like that. These 3 servers that we're focused on moving to the cloud, our RDS server and our web application and our database. So I'm going to go ahead and pick those that I want to analyze. I want to make sure I get all of them on there. And it looks like we're good to go. I want to grab that. See, there's some extra servers on here, but don't worry about that. Again, I'm picking what I want out of that list. And you can see the account that we created. We're going to go ahead and use for that also. If we need to add a different account, we can do that from here. We're going to go ahead and finish and let that scan complete. Again, this is going to take, in this case I set it for the 30-minute minimum. We'll go ahead and bounce through that so we can move on to the results. So now you can see we've ran all our analytics. We've got some sizing results here, and we want to go ahead and generate that Excel report so we can start taking a look at that. And it'll take just a minute for that to go ahead and complete, and we can go ahead and click close and open that up. And again, it is an Excel sheet, so you can open that on your workstation. In this case, I installed Excel brand new on this machine, so I'm going to go ahead and have to activate it there. But you can pull it up. We're going to pull it up right on the maps machine that we're using, and you can see it gives us an overview, and the sizing results is the first tab we want to look at. This is its recommendations that we would use in the Azure environment to to what they say is going to be the recommended from Microsoft to how to run this. And you can see there's our series of machines. The B2MS is the popular ones. Bs are good, but we typically, those are non-production kind of burstable machines, so these would be in other quotes we do would be moving those to Ds. But just to take a look at what the B is, there's many different series. Again, not to knock the Bs, but they're meant mainly for non-production. And I'll show you both excuse me, as we go along. But like I said, we like to move those to production series workloads, which are more like the D series. But to each his own. Some people like to size things different ways. This is just my technique. Obviously, we can do it both ways. And this was just showing you the profile that we have there. You can see the different things. And I'll highlight some of these as we're kind of bouncing through this. The CPU utilization is, this is a non-production. It's fairly low, you'll have pretty accurate numbers there. It actually creates extremely accurate numbers. The memory utilization that you've got going on, and remember we're on the sizing results tab, so this is what Microsoft tool is recommending. We have our I/O for disk, our network utilization, how many data disk each machine has, and that's very important to when we're actually mapping this to a quote, so we can see what it's going to cost us to run this in Azure. And the current utilization would be the picture of the current environment. Again, most times we can reduce that footprint when we go to the Azure cloud. We can see our OS types, our machine names, the memory, disk sizes currently, our adapters and the MAC addresses. We can take, or the IP addresses, sorry, and we can take a look at, and maybe we have multiple subnets, and in our case not. We just have one subnet. Our CPU utilization, similar things to what we saw on the other tab versus what is recommended that we do in Azure. You can see just to compare the CPU utilization there. And then just highlighting the memory. You want to look at these, what you have versus what's recommended, and come up with something that's comfortable for what you want to have in Azure, would be my recommendation. We try to work with the partner and the end customer to get something that meets the best piece of their needs. Sometimes the environments aren't heavy utilized, sometimes they are, sometimes pieces of them are. So again, typically we can reduce that footprint of service. It's important to get that right. If not, you can pay for extra workload costs. But the good thing again about Azure is we can adjust that, on the fly, size of machine up or down, which is a big advantage of moving to the cloud, as you probably know. We like to take these disk sizes. I like to copy this out, the current utilization, what the current disk size is, and what the I'll go ahead and copy that and put it down here. It makes me easier for the next phase of this, which is creating that quote. Again, do that how you want. This is just how I do it. So that wraps up the assessment piece. So at this point, I'll meet you in the next session where we'll take the assessment and make an estimate or quote.